Good evening. Good evening to all and welcome to the session, the Hindu Editorial Analysis for Proficiency in English. Am I audible, Pandu? Is it on? Today I will start with editorial vocabulary. I'm going to present differently. I'll present the word, the meaning, example, word forms, word combinations. We'll see how long it takes. Based on that, we'll decide whether to add synonyms and antonyms or not. Good evening to all. Am I audible? And is it on? Thank you. So let us start with today's editorial is all about governor's powers and based on governor's powers, the ruling of the Supreme Court. So let us start with the first word. It's all about veto. Veto, it can be a verb, it can be a noun. Low sound cannot be low sound. Please check your settings. Others, please tell me is there a problem with the audio? Tirupati Rao says low sound. Others, please check and let me know. At my end, nothing wrong. Check your settings. Meaning, the power to reject or prohibit a decision or proposal. This is the meaning of the word veto. It can be a verb, it can be a noun. Example, the president has the power to veto legislation passed by the Congress. Perfect. Huh. Word forms, veto is a verb form. Because it is a verb, the past form vetoed and vetoing is a ing form. It's a regular verb. And vetoes, noun singular, veto, plural, vetoes. What are the word combinations? Use the veto power, presidential veto, veto a bill. These are the combinations. Give your feedback later about this presentation. Second word, based on the editorial, crux. Crux is a noun, meaning the decisive or most important point at issue, the most important thing, one meaning, and a particular point of difficulty, another meaning. Example, let me explain the crux of the matter so that you understand the main point. An important example. And word forms, crux is a noun, singular, cruxes plural, and plural could also be cruces. This is something very important we don't expect. I've come across for the first time. Thank you very much. And word combinations get to the crux, come to the crux of the issue, the crux of the matter. All these are very important expressions. The main point, the main thing. Pretext, part of speech noun, meaning a reason given in justification of a course of action that is not the real reason. Here you can also think of the word excuse. Pretext means what? Excuse. His apology seemed like a pretext for avoiding the real issue. It seemed like a pretext for avoiding the real issue. Like it looks like an excuse. Word forms pretext singular, pretext plural, and pretextual adjective form. Word combinations create a pretext under the pretext of. This is an important expression. Under the pretext of. Regime, we have got many a time. Today you will see how it has been presented differently. Part of speech noun, meaning government, especially an authoritarian one, need not be all the time. A system or ordered way of doing things. This second meaning is also equally important. The new regime implemented several economic reforms, means the new government implemented several economic reforms. Word forms regime singular, regimes plural, a regiment related word, the current regiment, important word. Word combinations authoritarian regime, political regime. Here it has been used a new regime, exactly, current government. Next one, assent, another important word we have got many a time, meaning the expression of approval or agreement, assent. The committee gave their assent to the proposed changes. The committee gave their assent. You could also say its assent. Perhaps we don't know the context, division. Based on that plural, their assent to the proposed changes. What are the word forms? Assent, it's a verb as well as a noun. As a verb, assented. assenting. As a noun, assent, assents, plural form. But generally, we don't use it as in the plural form. Approve, ratify, assent, very good. Pandu. Word combinations, withhold assent, grant assent. Two important combinations, withhold assent, grant assent. Compel, we have got many a time, part of speech verb. Force or oblige someone to do something. Force someone to do something. Example, the evidence was strong enough to compel a confession from the suspect. The evidence was so strong enough to compel, force a confession from the suspect. What are the word forms? Compel, it's a verb. Compelled, a regular verb. Compelling, ing form can be an adjective, can be a verb, can be a noun. When we use it as a noun, we call it gerund. Compel obedience, force obedience. Compel attention. Generally, we use the expression, I'm compelled to say something. I'm compelled to do something. A reprimand, we have got many a time, meaning a formal expression of disapproval. You have to think of words like admonish, reprimand, scold, all these are related words. The employee received a reprimand for consistently being late to work. The employee received a reprimand for consistently being late to work. A reprimand, part of speech verb, a regular verb, and ing form. Issue a reprimand. Please focus on word combinations. Word combinations are very important. Receive a reprimand. Give a reprimand, issue a reprimand, receive, or get a reprimand. Prorogue is a legal term we have got for the first time, meaning discontinue a session of a parliament or other legislative assembly without dissolving it. You discontinue without dissolving, then it is called prorogue. Example, the decision to prorogue the session was met with mixed reactions. Means what? Both positive and negative. Prorogue, it is a verb, prorogue, a regular verb, proroguing, careful with spelling. Prorogue a parliament, prorogue a meeting, prorogue an assembly. These are the combinations. Culminate, part of speech verb, reaching a climax or point of highest development. Example, years of hard work culminated in a successful product launch. Years of hard work, important expression, culminated in a successful product launch. Word forms, culminate is a regular verb based on that culminated, culminating. Word combinations, culminate in success. Your efforts will ultimately culminate in success. Culminate with an event, and also usually it goes with success. Divest, an important word. Thank you very much. Thank you, Haripriya. Deprive someone of power, rights, or possessions. Another meaning of divest, to uh, to delegate the work. That is another meaning. But in this context and the regular meaning, deprive someone of power, rights, or possessions. The company decided to divest its non-core business units. Word forms: divest, divested, divesting. Divest from, divestiture of assets. Another important word form you have to learn. Let us come to the editorial, and what this is about governor's powers, as I said. And let us start with the tone of the editorial. The tone of this editorial can be described as appreciative and supportive of the Supreme Court's decision to remove the veto power of governors in the context of parliamentary democracy. Veto power is the ultimate power, and that is removed from governors. It is a good thing. The stand taken by the editorial supporting the Supreme Court decision, and in the context of the parliamentary democracy, obviously it's a good decision, not giving the veto power to the governor. No veto, no vote for veto. Look at the wording, no vote for veto on governors and their powers. But what is the main idea of this editorial? Supreme Court has done well, present perfect tense, to remove the veto power of governors. So Supreme Court has removed the veto power of governors. Based on that, the editorial has taken a stand, and it has taken a positive stand. It says Supreme Court has done well, that is appreciative, laudable. In a parliamentary democracy, governors do not have a unilateral veto over bills passed by the legislature. This is parliamentary democracy. Based on that, governors do not have unilateral veto. Unilateral means what? One sided. Generally, this expression unilateral goes with unilateral decision or decision making. Unilateral decision making, one sided, without any consensus. This is the crux of the Supreme Court's ruling in a case arising from Punjab after Governor Banwarilal Purohit withheld assent to some bills passed by the State Assembly on the pretext that these were adopted in an illegal session of the House. A lengthy sentence. This is the crux of the Supreme Court's ruling, being the most important point, one sided, you can say. Crux of the Supreme Court's ruling means what? The most important point in a case arising from why this case has come into existence, come into the limelight. In a case arising, I will explain this later, from Punjab after Governor Banwarilal Purohit withheld assent, means he did not give the assent to some bills passed by the State Assembly on the pretext he did not give the approval, the assent, and he withheld on the pretext, on the excuse that these were adopted in an illegal session of the House. That was his justification. The court's reading of the scheme of Article 200. Before I continue, here I said you have to recollect rise, arise, and also raise. All these you have to recollect. We have done many a time. The court's reading of the scheme of Article 200, which deals with grant of assent to bills, is in line with an important phrase, is in line with the core tenet of parliamentary democracy. The Supreme Court stand is in line with, means in agreement with the core tenet. Tenet means what? The principle, the doctrine. We have got many a time. The principle or the doctrine related to religion, belief, you can think of all these words. The core principle of parliamentary democracy. What is that core tenet? That an elected regime responsible to the legislature runs the state's affairs. It is not the governor who runs the state's affairs, it is the legislature, that to elected regime responsible to the legislature runs the state's affairs in tandem with, very good Pandu, I appreciate that. That an elected regime responsible to the legislature runs the state's affairs. It is not the governor, it is the elected regime. While granting assent is a routine function, the other options, routine function is what? Granting approval, granting assent. But the other options, withholding assent, or reserving a bill for the president's consideration. There are two things. One, the governor can withhold. The other, reserving a bill for the president's consideration, have been subjects of controversy. When the governor gets the bill, if he gives the assent, no issue as such. But either the governor withholds or he reserves a bill for the president's consideration, that results in, that has resulted in controversy, have been subjects of controversy. Here it is in present perfect active voice. There is a proviso. Proviso means a stipulation. You all know the word stipulation, like condition. There is a proviso to the article which states that as soon as possible, the governor may return the bill if it is not a money bill to the House for reconsideration. But when the bill is passed again with or without changes, he cannot withhold assent. There are two or three aspects that the sentence talks about. One, there is an expression as soon as possible. When the governor receives a particular bill, he has to give his assent as soon as possible. That is the actual thing expected. But the governor may return the bill. Only he can return the bill if it is not a money bill. Money bill, he has to give the assent. If it is not a money bill, he may return the bill to the House for reconsideration without giving the assent. Now, in that case, imagine when the bill is passed again, second time the governor gets the same bill with or without changes, he cannot withhold assent. He has to give the assent. The Supreme Court has now read the power to withhold assent and the proviso in conjunction, holding that whenever the governor withholds assent, he has to send the bill back to the legislature for reconsideration. Same point is being said. When he receives a bill, if he doesn't want to give the assent, he has to send the bill back to the legislature for reconsideration. This effectively means that the governor either grants assent in the first instance or will be compelled to do so after the bill's second passage. First time, there are two options. One, he can give the assent first for the first time, he gets it, or he sends it for reconsideration. In that case, if he gets it back, he will be compelled to do so. That means what? He'll be forced to give the assent second time. No choice as such. Now, again, appreciating the court has done well to point out that governors, in a system that requires them to function mainly on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, cannot withhold action on bills and must act as soon as possible. When it comes to governor and the chief minister, or the president and the prime minister, you have to learn two important words. I've given many a time. One is DE space JURE. The other one, de jure, de facto, means titular, legally. Legally, someone is head, and reality. In reality, someone. If you take the president, that also you have to recollect. President is a de jure head. Legally, he is a head. But who has the powers? The prime minister. De facto head is prime minister. When it comes to the state, governor is a de jure head, and the CM is a de facto head. Here again, you have to recollect, we have done many a time. What is the difference between these two? VISE is a verb and VICE is a noun. That you have to recollect. This is a clear reprimand administered to governors. Reprimand, formal disapproval, scolding, admonish, all these words you can think of. This is a clear reprimand administered to governors who believe they can endlessly delay action on cabinet or legislative proposals. They have been doing it because of the absence of a prescribed time frame. The problem, all this because there is no prescribed time frame, only as soon as possible. Mr. Purohit's stand that the particular session of the assembly was illegal because an adjourned house was reconvened by the speaker on his own has been rejected. The governor had a particular stand, had a particular reason to do that. He's on the he gave the reason the assembly was illegal. Why was it illegal, that particular session? Because an adjourned house means temporarily you break off an activity to be resumed later. Adjourned was reconvened by the speaker on his own. And that particular accusation or allegation or the reason has been rejected by the court, has been rejected, present perfect passive voice. The court has ruled that the earlier session had only been adjourned and not prorogued. Adjourn means break off from a meeting or a session to be resumed later. Prorogue means discontinue something like a parliament without dissolving. Both are entirely different. So the court has ruled that the earlier session had only been past perfect, passive voice, adjourned, and not prorogued. The verdict should not give any further scope for controversy over the role played by governors in the lawmaking process that culminates with their granting assent to bills and must end the tussle between the elected regimes and the center's appointees. Based a lengthy sentence, the verdict, the judgment, should not give any further scope for controversy. Now the controversy has to be brought to an end over the role played by governors in the lawmaking process that reaches a final stage with a granting assent to bills and must end the tussle. Tussle means what? To fight, one of the meanings, tussle between elected regimes and the center's appointees. Who are the center's appointees? The governors. There is still some residual scope for controversy if, after all this, still there is a possibility for controversy. What is that? There's still some residual scope for controversy if, as a result of governors being divested of the power to reject bills unilaterally, divest means to deprive of the power to reject bills unilaterally, they start referring bills they disapprove of to the president. Now, governors, they cannot take unilateral decisions. The veto power has been removed, and now they cannot, they have a choice. First time they have to approve, give the assent. Second time also, there is no choice. Now, there's another option. What is that? If at all they want to create another controversy, they start referring bills they disapprove of to the president. Such an eventuality should not be allowed to arise. Such an eventuality should not be allowed to arise. Means what? That should not be allowed to happen. Eventuality, there's an important word, eventual. Eventually means what? Finally, at the end. So that should not be allowed to happen. That's all about this editorial. And I'm offering 4 courses. These are not live, except one, not live courses. Grammar course, please go through all these later. English for banks, general English foundation course, all recorded videos are there. But essay course for civil services mains exam, that's a live batch. Let us have a look at the questions based on the editorial to improve your reading comprehension skill. What is a core tenet of parliamentary democracy emphasized in the editorial? Whenever you read questions, always focus on the core words or keywords. Eventually means finally. What is a core tenet, belief, or doctrine or principle of parliamentary democracy emphasized in the editorial? Unilateral power of governors, authority of the president, elected regime responsible to the legislature. C is the answer. Supreme Court intervention, not correct. In the specific case discussed in the editorial, why did Governor Banwarilal Purohit withhold assent to bills? Why did he withhold? No, first one is C. Second one, why did he withhold assent to bills? Bills were unconstitutional. Bills were passed in an illegal session. Bills were unrelated to state affairs. Bills were money bills. Many students have got the first one right. Go to the second one. What is the answer? Second one. Bills were passed in an illegal session, but the court has rejected that claim because the assembly was not prorogued, it was adjourned. Question number 3. What does the Supreme Court ruling say about the power of governors to withhold assent of bills? What does the Supreme Court ruling say about the power of governors to withhold assent of bills? Question number 3. No one has answered question number 3. C. What is C here? Governors can withhold assent without limitations. Governors can only withhold assent in the case of money bills. Governors cannot unilaterally veto bills. Answer is C. How does the editorial view the actions of governors who delay action on bills? What is the stand taken by the editorial about governors' actions in delaying when it comes to giving assent to the bills? How does the editorial view the actions of governors who delay action on bills? Supportive, neutral, critical, indifferent. What is the answer? Not indifferent. Answer is critical, not supportive, not neutral, not indifferent. Critical. The editorial did not approve the stand taken by the governors. It supported the Supreme Court. It is critical of the actions of governors. What does the editorial express? Con- what does the editorial express concern about in the conclusion? Editorial expresses some concern at the fag end of the editorial. What is that? You have to find out. Governors having too little power? Not correct. Potential controversies if governors refer disapproved bills to the president? Hold this one. Supreme Court's interference in state affairs? Not correct. Lack of clarity in parliamentary democracy? No. Answer is because now their veto power has been taken away. What is possible? They may refer disapproved bills to the president. That is what going to happen eventually, and that should not happen. We should not allow that to happen. That's all about this editorial. Only for today at 5 p.m. I have an important meeting, so I brought it to 5. And I hope this is clear. So initially, some students have given the feedback. I would like to thank them. And whatever you think of this design or format or presentation, initially, first 10 minutes related to vocabulary, please give the feedback. Thank you very much. I'll check the time, then I will try to add synonyms, antonyms also.